expression of our fundamental values and beliefs as espoused by the African Trade, the Freedom Charter, and the Harare Declaration, and the constitutional principles. The meeting stressed that it must always be clear that the interests of an individual cannot take precedence over or jeopardize the interests of our democracy or that of the nation. That our commitment to a constitutional democracy encompasses a commitment to fundamental change or radical social and economic transformation. The one without the other does not work. So that all can enjoy the social economic rights enshrined in the Constitution. Reaffirmation of the provision in the Bill of Rights that everyone is equal before the law, has the right to equal protection and benefit of the law, and conversely that every person has an equal responsibility to respect and observe the law. The NEC hereby reaffirms that all our democratic institutions, including the judiciary and law enforcement agencies, shall always be defended from political attacks so that they do their work without fear, favor, prejudice. That any attempt to respond to legal and judicial matters through threats and acts of violence from any quarter is abhorrent and should not and will not be tolerated. That all South Africans, including ANC members and leaders, have a responsibility to protect themselves and others against COVID-19 and to observe the measures put in place to fight the spread of COVID-19. No one is exempted from complying with the regulations and restrictions. That the South African nation is founded on the principle of unity in diversity, and the sustenance of our democracy requires that we constantly ensure the assertion of the values of non-racialism and rejection of any manifestation of ethnic chauvinism. That the Commission of Inquiry on State Capture should be supported, and all individuals who have been invited to appear, including members and leaders of the ANC, should cooperate with the Commission. That the South African Police Services, and especially those deployed at Nkanda this past weekend, managed the volatile situation as best as they could, avoiding a situation in which deliberate acts of provocation may have resulted in bloodshed, using human shields. That call was made. The SAPS must, in carrying out its public order responsibilities, in all circumstances, use restraint and prevent unnecessary loss of life. That the former president is still exploring various legal options, including to the Constitutional Court. The ANC will do the following. The NEC stated clearly that the current situation in KwaZulu-Natal does not represent a popular uprising, but has been engineered from within the ranks of the ANC. The NEC must and will ensure that it manages this situation in a manner consistent with our mandate of renewal and unity. In this regard, the NEC took the following decisions. To reassert our fundamental commitment to the thoroughgoing renewal of the ANC with the aim of reasserting our historical values, including revolutionary morality and discipline and selfless service to our people. Reaffirm support for the leadership of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal and instruct those from our ranks who are trying to undermine this leadership to desist from trying to divide the ANC in the province and nationally. Reinforce the KZN PEC by strengthening the team of NEC deployees to the province. Ratify the NWC decision for the immediate disbandment of MKMVA and the MK Council, and confirm the establishment of the MK Veterans Unity Conference Preparatory Committee and the 60th Anniversary Committee. State unequivocally that the actions of sections and individuals of MKMVA in the year that we are due to celebrate 60 years of Mkhonto weSizwe, which as a liberation army prided itself on its discipline, is a shameful blight on this proud history. The threat of violence aimed at undermining our democracy and its core institutions is counter-revolutionary, akin to similar displays and acts by extremely right-wing enemies. We instruct the SGO and provincial secretaries to urgently investigate and initiate disciplinary action against the organizers responsible for the incitement of violence and defiance of COVID regulations, and individuals responsible for burning the ANC regalia and other acts of ill discipline which violates the ANC's constitution and code of conduct. The ANC calls on all its structures, leaders and members to ensure that we remain focused on the key tasks confronting the nation today, in particular, the fight against COVID-19, economic recovery and reconstruction with a focus on job creation, social support to mitigate the impact of COVID-19, strengthening local government, improving the provision of basic services, and preparing for local government elections. Organizational renewal and unity, which in the immediate term includes completing the candidate selection process, convening of BBGMs, and regional conferences, as well as regular political engagement with structures. The NEC will be in the coming days, brief and engage with all its structures across the country on these decisions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, DSG. We have got a WhatsApp line. Amos, you can share if we've got questions coming on the WhatsApp line, because that's the only way then we can read them out to the DSG. And then there are also members of the media here. Maybe we should give the ones that are here first preference, and then from there we'll go to the WhatsApp line. It's just Gavin. Is it Paladi? Pilani. Yeah. And Ndebo. Okay. In that order.
Thank you, DSG. Gavin here from ENCA. Are you specifically only taking disciplinary action against people who organized the rally there, or are you taking action against people for what they have said on the stage? I'm specifically asking about the suspended Secretary General. Do you view that as a matter which requires the ANC to take disciplinary action against him? Mr. Duarte, did the NEC call on the President to accept the outcome of the Constitutional Court application next Tuesday and report to serve his 15 months, if that is what the outcome is? And then there appears to be a public impression that the former president is pursuing the court challenge but doesn't want to go to jail. I just want to get the ANC's view on this. Are you seeking any sort of political solution, or do you believe that if the time comes, South Africa to prepare to see the former president go to jail?
Okay. Are you covered? Okay, Devil?
Okay. Devil with the SAPC. I just want to know if the ANC or the NEC had engaged with the former president following what happened outside his home in KZN. And secondly, I just want to know again, there's been accusation that it seems the NEC is out to disband all the structures. For instance, the NKMP, the structures that are seen not to be, maybe not in disagreement with the NEC, but the structures that are seen to be supporting the former president. Seems everyone who seems to be supporting the former president. The structures, NKMPA, the provincial structures, regional structures that seem to support the former president are being disbanded. Is that the case? And maybe my last question would be the events or the activities that played outside in Ghana seems to suggest that there are serious divisions within the ANC. And that on its own poses threat to the renewal project that the NEC, the current NEC, seems to be pursuing. As the NEC, are you convinced that indeed the renewal and the unity project is on course under all this that is happening?
You're covered. Okay, the two questions we have, there are only two on the WhatsApp line. The one is from Karen Duplessis, freelance journalist. She says, in terms of the ANC's 2017 Nazareth resolutions, does the former president conviction mean he must step aside as an ex-officio NEC member? There's another one from Tando Maeko of Business Day. Was former President Zuma present at the NEC meeting? If so, did he make any representation to the leadership? Thanks, Jessie.
Thank you very much. Let me start with Gavin first. I'm taking action against organizers only or those who make comments on the stage. With regard to the comments made by the Secretary General of the ANC, what we're doing this morning is trying to understand, we will be asking him to explain himself, basically. There were two versions. One version was a newspaper version, which was clearly incorrect. The second version was what we ourselves heard, is the Secretary General calling on those structures who are going to be disbanded for any reason to disobey. I'm not using the exact word that he used, but to disobey the leadership. Let me just say about that. Firstly, there's no structure in the ANC that is disbanded because it is against any individual or in favor of any individual. Structures in the ANC at the moment are undergoing a process of renewing their mandate. So branches whose mandate has expired are in the process of holding branch meetings to elect new leadership. Similarly, there are regions whose mandate has expired who are in the process of doing the same. They made that decision on their own. So how would a branch general meeting take place to elect a new leadership? The secretary of the branch would convene the meeting. We have no say in it. We have no way of giving it any kind of influence or direction. The province provides dates, and the secretary and the province agree that the BBGM to elect a new leadership takes place on a day X, and that happens. There's absolutely no discussion in that process about who that branch supports or does not support. So I would say that that is rather a far-fetched notion because it's not true, and it's actually trying to create an atmosphere which we've understood to be part of the general atmosphere of creating discord amongst certain members of the ANC. Secondly, a region that has to go to a conference and is due to go to a conference for the same reason, the regional secretary advises that we are almost a year out of our mandate. Some of them are 2 years out of their mandate because of COVID couldn't go. Some are doing it virtually, others are not doing it virtually. Many have stopped. And as you know, we paused all actions when the level 4, current level 4 was announced. So I would just say that it is part of the generation of rhetoric, including the kind of mobilization that took place over the weekend and before the weekend began, which would try to give an impression that there was a national state of uprising in the country, when in fact that wasn't so. Unfortunately, I do say to my colleagues, you in the media, that some journalists also fueled it a little bit, the excitement of perhaps having a little bit more. We hope that this will die. No one wants to go to jail, Government. I don't think there's any person in the world I'm aware of that is willingly going to accept a jail term. I think that President Zuma is exploring every legal avenue that is available to reduce or to remove the custodial the custodial sentence that has been put on him. And I think that in the view of the ANC, and we've said so in our statement, we respect the rule of law. We believe that the judiciary must be left to make its own decisions. I know there's a lot of talk out there about the judiciary being influenced this way and that way. We don't believe we have any say in how the judiciary will make a finding. We would hope that Comrade Zuma's court application will be successful, and that's really all we can say at this stage. Have we engaged Comrade Zuma about what happened outside of Nkanda? Not yet. We haven't. Although, let me say that there is an intention, and as we say in our statement, to engage with the former president, to have discussions with him. We have selected a group of NEC members who are going to work with the PEC and the current NEC employees, very senior members of the ANC, who will on an ongoing basis be having talks with Comrade Zuma. And this is very important. Comrade Zuma is an elder of our organization. We love him, we respect him. And there's no reason for us not to continue to engage with him. Did we, okay, then the divisions in the NEC, of course, yes. I think when any such event takes place, even the little one that took place outside the Tuli House on Saturday with a group calling themselves Gauteng RET Forces, there were 28 people. There is a difference of opinion raging in the ANC right now. And the difference of opinion is based on, in my humble view, what is being misconstrued, which is a genuine ANC resolution. The ANC resolution, if one explains it to people, we have no choice but to embark on a process of radically transforming the structure of our economy. But at the same time, you cannot radically restructure the economy without social reconstruction of what is taking place on the ground in our country. And the two are inextricably bound together. And when we will be, over the next weekend, exploring and expanding on the policies of the ANC vis-à-vis economic recovery, it is precisely at the core of our economic recovery plan that we must have an economy that works for all the people of South Africa. You can't have an economy that is one-sided. Our economy has not grown for a while. And it's not just about 2008. It's been a long-moving trajectory of limited growth for various factors. And I think at another meeting with yourselves, we'll be very happy for Eno Godongwali to come and explain where we're going and the direction we're taking. But having said that, we cannot not restructure the structure of the economy of South Africa and eradicate poverty and lift our people out of poverty. Now, some elements in our organization decided to use the term RET as a mobilizing tool and an accusation that the resolution of the 54th and 53rd conference was not being implemented. And they've mobilized a whole range of young people, but they don't sit down and explain to the young people what is in fact happening to try to restructure the economy. So there's no content except the slogan. It's worrisome. When you're talking to the youth in this country who are unemployed, who are poor, who are educated and poor, and educated and unemployed, we need all of us to be very clear what we say. The ANC's commitment is to undo and eradicate poverty, is to create sustainable jobs. But in the atmosphere of this pandemic, how real COVID-19 is. So for the skeptics out there, you have the right to your opinion, but what you don't have the right to do is to push it down all our throats, your opinion down all our throats when we are sitting and watching death in our families. Some of us have been personally affected. So this is not a, we take it very seriously when people organize events and there's no mask. When people organize events and there is no social distancing. And the theory that is pronounced is that COVID-19 is part of a conspiracy. All we can do is ask that our people in this country observe the restrictions. They are going to be around for a while. Comrade Zuma is an ex-official member of the ANC. He's not been asked to step aside. And we will leave it at that for now. And thank you for the question.
Thanks, Jessie. We've got quite a few on our WhatsApp line.
I hope they're from journalists and
Yes, no, they are not from those journalists. There's one from T. Madia Eyewitness News. Can we get an update on what the presenter has found regarding the suspended Secretary General Ace Makashule, Chonyengen and Kalmiaus? There's a decision being made regarding disciplinary charges. The next one is from Liz Zagatandwa, Mail and Guardian. DSG, was it prudent for the NEC to postpone its meeting this past weekend, given that this was a matter of the state? Can you share what was the outcome of former President Zuma's talks with the KZN leadership? Did the NEC discuss the statement by the SG in Nkandla, where he called for a rebellion, or will this form part of the investigation? Swungalwa from Newsroom Africa asks, the NEC stated clearly that the current situation in KwaZulu-Natal does not represent a popular uprising, but has been engineered from within the ranks of the ANC. Does the party know who is involved? And if so, what action will the party take? Jan Dilane of Rapport, former President Jacob Zuma refused to say during his press briefing on Sunday that he will abide by future decisions of the Constitutional Court. His present actions in court and outside suggest that he will not do that if the court confirms its earlier sentence of a jail term for contempt of court. Why isn't the NEC initiating disciplinary steps against him? Kaugero Maholego from UFM, other than violation of COVID-19 protocols, which the state should be dealing with, does the ANC believe some of the leaders involved in the Nkandla gathering to misconducting themselves, either by organizing the gathering, speeches there? Is the party considering any disciplinary action against anyone in particular, the likes of the former president himself, the suspended Secretary General and Kalmiaus, since they are leading figures? Good morning, this is Bongani Tlina from Gagasi FM. I would want to ask the DSG whether the NEC members that were deployed in KZN did meet the former president, JZN, what was the outcome? What is the party's take on President Zuma's blaming his persecution to internal political factions? Also, has the organization come out with strategies of campaigning for local government elections amid the COVID-19 regulations and restrictions that prohibit meetings? Tando Mayeko from Business Day. Other NEC members were on stage on Sunday in Nkandla and openly supported the former president. Will they also be made to explain their actions to the leadership of the party? Luka Nyotalata, ETV News. Is the ANC at all concerned by the levels of ill-discipline that's displayed by members, including leaders such as the Secretary General Ace Makashule? Pace Eva from Platinum Northwest TV and Free State Central News. Is the ANC NWC going to discuss the allegations of firing the Northwest Premier, Job Mohoro, anytime soon? And what DSG, we did not even talk about this.
No, but I think you're also taking questions that are repeating other questions.
Yeah. No, I don't want them to think that we're closing them out.
Thank you.
No, thanks, DSG.
I'll try my best. If I've missed something will help. Okay. We never discuss who we will take to a disciplinary action with yourselves as the media. You know that. And we're not going to start doing so now. It's not really, that's an internal matter. And it will be dealt with internally, as it should be. The people have rights. The ANC has rights to prevent people from being ill-disciplined by using its rules. And the people who are ill-disciplined also have a right to explain themselves in a manner that is not colored in any way or where there's a creation of a extra, in the old days we used to say embroidery, where somebody's embroidering onto something that does not exist. So our DC platform is a very honest platform, where a charge is put, a person is given 2 weeks to explain why they should not be charged. The charges are then given back to the person. The disciplinary committees would sit, listen to the presenter who present the case and the charges, and the person is enabled to respond and may have witnesses, may bring witnesses, and can also have an ANC member in good standing present to represent them. So that's how the platform works. It doesn't work for us to explain to you who we're going to charge and for what reason. We thought it the best thing to do, to postpone a meeting where we would be discussing quite important matters and be distracted by what was taking place in KwaZulu-Natal. Furthermore, once we heard that people were being moved from Port Elizabeth in I'm learning, in the Bay, I'm learning. And also from Mpumalanga, from the Free State and other parts, small groups of people being brought to Nkandla, we thought that it would need a hands-on approach. And indeed, as the President said, you were in our meeting. I don't think we need to pretend anymore with one another. Journalists were recording the NEC meeting. You had your own sources there recording verbatim what the President said. So, the President in his opening remarks said that he himself had to be hands-on, and he was hands-on. We in the SGO had to be hands-on, and we were hands-on. The people who were outside there, and although this was a matter for the state, as you say, it was also a matter for the ANC. Those are our members out there. And we needed to take some responsibility to make sure that there was no bloodshed. When words such as human shields were used, we sat up and we took note. Those are words that are used by terrorists internationally. Human shields. It's a worrisome thing when words like that is used. We sat up and took note, and we wanted to make sure that we talked to ANC members so that we prevent any bloodshed. Because who would have died there if there was an exchange between the police and those people in the crowd with firearms would have been women and children, actually. So we had to take some responsibility, and that is why the NEC meeting had to be postponed. Yes, there are NEC members who publicly spoke to you. I think somebody spoke to one of the newspapers this morning and expressed their concern about the NEC having been postponed. We accept that. But the fact of the matter is, we have to take responsibility. As I said earlier, we will be asking the SG to explain this statement, especially because the statement was said, something was said by him, there was something that was analyzed by a journalist which said something else. We'd like him to explain to us exactly what he said. Do we know who are responsible? I think it's pretty obvious that there are certain people in the ANC who take a leading role from various provinces who stimulate the kind of ill discipline that we see. They also do it in their own provinces. They arrange and organize people to go and disrupt branches by taking people with pangas and knives to a branch meeting and then disrupting a branch. We know this. So we know who the leading people are in that regard. What is difficult right now is that there are many people who will not come forward and say, I'm prepared to put this in a statement to the police, because these very same people are also threatening me. We do know who they are. It is not a matter for us, it's a matter for the police. We will leave it there for now. Jan from Rapport, the ANC stands firmly behind the rule of law, the independence of the judiciary, and we have nothing to say at all about how the judiciary will react to the current application by Comrade Zuma. We would only wish that it would go well for you. Then University of Free UFM. I've already spoken about DC. Did the NEC members meet with Comrade JZ in KZN? I'm aware that NEC member Lendisi Sulu and also Tony Ngeni was in a meeting with Comrade Zuma. We don't have a report about what was discussed, so I can't share that with you. In terms of local government elections, we can't do any electioneering under level 4. It's not possible for us to do electioneering under level 4 because our style of reaching out to voters is very direct. Door to door, explaining our memorandum to people. It's important that we do. People must be able to make a choice that is informed. And so you do need to explain to people what is in your memorandum, accept their criticism and accept their praise. Sometimes people do praise, actually, they do. So what we're doing is we have made a submission to the Moseneke inquiry, in which we have said that if we cannot have the elections on the 27th of August, as has been announced, but not promulgated, then we would ask that they look for between 1 and 6 months for the election to be postponed, but taking into account the constitutional imperatives that guide elections. As you know, the Constitution limits us to elections to take place 90 days after the last election. We've already passed that point. We will have passed that point. And if we are to have a further postponement, it would require a 2/3 majority in the Parliament and a constitutional amendment. We're not keen that there should be a constitutional amendment for a short-term problem. So these are the submissions we've made to the Moseneke Commission, inquiry commission. Then, are we concerned about ill discipline? Absolutely, we're concerned about all the ill discipline that might take place wherever it takes place. And for that reason, we've asked provincial secretaries in the main to deal with some of what we know. We also don't accuse people falsely. We're very careful about that. You accuse a person falsely, it's just spreading more of the rumor mongering. What must be done in any inquiry is facts must be brought to the table, so that whoever is going to be taken to a DC is done so by fact and not by the fiction or the general atmosphere in the air. We are concerned. We are really concerned, and what we would do is, and this is why we're asking our structures to focus on what we need to do now. The focus must be on, as soon as we can possibly do so, get on with your BGMs to finalize the selection of candidates. As soon as you can, get into your BBGMs to, if your mandate has expired, to elect new branch leaders. Get into a regional conference if your mandate is expired, to have a new regional leadership. We're not disbanding anybody, and I don't know where that comes from. But wherever it might come from, the people need to know that they are making up the story, because that's not coming from the ANC, and they know it very well. What we anticipate is that some people are going to attempt to have parallel structures in the country. We'll need that when it comes. The ANC will not be deterred by threats. and we will continue to work very judiciously to have renewal and unity take its course. Renewal is not an event. It's a process of interlinked things that need to happen. Political education amongst some of them, looking at who to recruit into the ANC, deliberately recruiting into the ANC people with skills, making sure that people who have been disadvantaged in any way, who've been left out of lists in the previous terms of the ANC, are brought back and their membership is restored, and they're given back the dignity of their right to be an ANC member if they so choose. So renewal is not one thing. It's a whole range of many different actions that will put the ANC back on track and give us back the dignity that we may have lost because of the manipulation of the membership system of the ANC over the last 15 years. It's a long, hard job, but we will do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, DSD. You have dealt with almost all the questions that the journalists might have imagined, unless it's completely. So there are two hands. So this is the last round. Yes, Devu, and then we'll take Gavin afterwards.
Okay. Maybe my part in short, PSG. I just want to know, how would you describe the ANC of today, or the tenure of the current NEC? How would you describe it? Is it just a cacophony of noise that will pass, or indeed the ANC is faced with a number of challenges this summer? How would you describe this tenure?
Okay, Gavin?
Thank you so much. It's Gilbert from ENCA again. Did the NEC reach a consensus or an opinion on whether or not the custodial sentence given to the former president by the Constitutional Court was the correct one? The former president has raised issues with what he says is detention without trial and a slide back into apartheid era rule. It's a very serious allegation to make considering South Africa's history. What was the NEC's view on this? Do you reject that? Now that the MKMBA and MK Council have been disbanded, will the NEC send NEC members or MK veterans to demobilize those outside Nkandla, or do you accept that you have no control over those people? And then what does the ANC NEC make of the former president appointing a spokesperson from another political party? Thank you.
Can I answer those two first, because they're very big questions?
Yeah.
Firstly, the current NEC is an elected collection of leadership that represents the aspirations of people who believe that we need to transform South Africa and create a South Africa which is non-racial, non-sexist, and united. We are not an homogenous group of people. We have different views, we come from different backgrounds. There are older members of the ANC in the NEC, and they're very young people who are in that NEC as well. So it is a mix of people who are able to provide us with a strong sense of what a broad church is about, so that we have various opinions and not just one staccato way of thinking, and this is what the ANC over the decades has been about, is to bring on board many different views and opinions. And to express those opinions in our structures, criticize each other, accept criticism. What is different, somewhat different, is the incumbency of the media in every meeting that we have. That's very new. We do struggle with that because it restricts us in many ways from speaking openly. Many of us would like to speak very openly, writing little notes and making sure that we we say, very carefully selected words. This is not a good way for any liberation movement to continue, and that is one thing that we are extremely concerned about. Did we discuss the custodial sentence? The ANC is not going to enter into the question of custodial, non-custodial. That is entirely between Comrade Zuma and his legal team and the state. We have no role to play there except to continue to support Comrade Zuma in any way, whichever way it goes, whichever way we can. Are we not able to control the people outside Nkanda? I would say very respectfully that the fact that we sent people down to KZN and we were able to avert bloodshed must say something to you. And I think that answers the question, actually. You asked so many questions, I even forgot. But I think that, I've covered mostly what, and then about the appointment of a person from another political party, that is the choice entirely made by Mr. Zuma on his own. We cannot make a comment about that. We are interested in the why part as well, but we cannot make a comment. To make a comment means that we're giving a status, once again, which I'm sure is what the question is trying to do, is to give a status to a person. We don't do that. It's not our business, actually.
Detention without trial?
We heard that said, and as I said, we do not wish to engage on the custodial matter whatsoever. Thank you.
Okay. There was a question from Debo.
Did I miss?
Yeah, it wasn't really, maybe, I don't think you understood the question yet, Steve. What I was asking, looking at the challenges that the ANC is facing now, would you say, for the first time maybe in the history of the ANC post-1994, is this the trying time for the NEC, or is this the worst time for the NEC? How would you describe it?
There's no worst time. Let me say, look, in the history of the ANC, there have been very bad times. There were many times in the 60s that were difficult. I don't want to go into all of those. It is a difficult time, and no one is denying it. What we're saying is that difficult times have been had before, and we've been able to emerge out of them because we sit down and we discuss. And we discuss in a manner that is open and fair to each other, sometimes harshly critical of one another, but the ability to rise out of it has always been there. And even in this time, it is there. Yesterday's meeting was one such example. Very strong views were expressed. Very harsh tones were used by some comrades. But in the end, what mattered most was the principles upon which our organization lays its foundations, and that everybody in that meeting unequivocally supported the rule of law, unequivocally supported the independence of the judiciary, unequivocally supported the constitution of the republic. And I think that those are very important matters to say to you. It's the ability to rise out of the darkness and remain in the light, and give guidance and give leadership. And I think that I don't understand the question quite, because it's a very theoretical question, and it's a question that has its own answer in your head. But unfortunately, I don't have an answer for you. Maybe the next time we talk, we can explore a little bit more.
No, I don't have any answer.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Somebody said, can I just share this with you? Somebody sent me a message to say, can you please breathe in between answering questions? I thought I was quite relaxed.
You were, yes. You were. No. Thank you very much, members of the media, and thanks you for providing those comprehensive answers. This now brings us to the end of our briefing. We have already circulated the statement for ease of reference.
Please stay safe, stay away from COVID.
So for broadcasters, we've got another event at 2:30, which the president will be addressing. Amos will share the details. Is the centenary.